Hello gamers and welcome to another YouTube video. Today on the menu is the remainder of the loot box tanks outside of the Perk Louis. I'm not interested in light tank gameplay, so I don't really want to play it because I can't give a good opinion on it anyways. But something that comes around every Christmas, I think, across the world is thinking about people that have it less fortunate than us to be playing World of Tanks. The charity from last year, we are going to be repeating it with Mouse, Skill, and myself. Last year, raising about 130,000 plus euros, I think. And the page is here with information that will be linked as well. We will be supporting Radio Hamburg again, which will then distribute the funds to the the people in need. English is a hard language, but all of the information is here. Again, it's an umbrella organization, so they help a lot of smaller organizations as well. They're very transparent, and you may be wondering why something more local. Something more local is done, at least from our perspective, because you can't really tell from my perspective with large organizations always where the money is going, and you want to make sure that it goes mainly to those in need and not get stuck on some hands along the way, right? On top of this, the most important part as well to support this charity event will be the silent auction. We had this auction last year as well, and we have upgraded it. This time around, we've integrated it into the skills index as well. You can go here and bid on the tanks that you would want. We have some really cool items, a BZ, an EBR, 3 Chieftain MK6. So a lot of fun stuff as well, and I hope that it will raise a lot of money for the charity as well. And help the kids out. So please do check that out. All the relevant links will be pinned down below. And I hope to make it a great success. And to anybody that donated, thank you very much. Anybody will donate, thank you very much as well in the future. So when we compare all of these tanks to their respective counterpart, we come to a few conclusions, right? The Lansen C versus the Streets whatever. Alpha is such an important statistic in this regard. It wins by about 30. Then of course getting higher base pen as well. With the premium pen, it's I have actually no clue which one of the two it is. I just know that the base pen is higher. On the premium penetration department, we end up seeing, guess what? The improved version of the Lansen winning as well. Crazy. Lansen does get better rate of fire, but that doesn't really matter because Alpha is simply more important. Both of those get -10, which is very comfy. Better aiming time, better dispersion. Basically, better almost everything on the new Lansen C, if you want to call it that way. Armor-wise, you'll see it later, definitely winning as well. So just purely from statistics, Camo winning as well, a few range winning as well, all together. Yeah, so it's interesting. It just feels like a better lance in that regard. Then switching over to the TBT. Of course, the TBT gets better alpha than the TNH, and we just talked about how important alpha is. I think we'll go back to that as well. Alpha is king. So purely that, it's a big difference. Yeah, it's a big difference. It's 40 plus. The TNH wins by 4 millimeters of premium pen. Not really that impactful. Reload is not that far off of each other, right? But you can see DPM very low for both of those. Very, very low. -7 on both, but better aiming time and better dispersion for the TBT with a higher alpha gun. Doesn't make too much sense. TNH slightly better HP, but armor-wise, the TBT would be winning on the turret department again. Mobility-wise, it is not the greatest amount of difference, of course. If you take this with a turbo, then you will see that the TBT is not that far off the TNH altogether in the mobility department still. Top speed is not that relevant because you cannot reach it. Anyways, so there's that. And then moving on to the Jagdpanzer E90 facing off against the VZTD. I think the Jagdpanzer at this point is better than the VZTD, simply because this tank got butchered a little bit in the rebalance, because this used to have like 385 millimeters of pen, now it's 355. So yeah, it's winning in the pen department, but it's losing in the gun depression department. It's losing in the dispersion department. It has better aim time in the VCTD though, but like in terms of armor usability, I think the Jagdpanzer wins out as well, right? So there's a lot to be said there. So the TBT's armor model, this is when it's ideal, which is fully hold on, just like basically every other tank in this loot box. I swear to God, it has the flaps that are shootable through. The Crocodilo has this, the Jagdpanzer E90 has this. I think the BZT doesn't have this, but still, it's an interesting trend. All of these have flaps. You can see here how hold on, it is really, really strong. Against APCR, also pretty strong. This hull, yeah. When it's flat though, it becomes a lot different, and we're gonna be watching it this way, with its own ammunition type against each other. AP is only gonna be putting the flaps on the lower plate. When you are picking hold on, this starts to become the problem, right? This turret phase is where people should be shooting for more often than not. When playing against a bit higher caliber, like 340 heat, it just remains kind of the same. Like that's the spot people are going to be shooting you for mainly. So when you're playing in hold down, you will be very, very good. You will not be exposing too much. And of course, against like these APCR guns, lots of like just ricochets coming off. The turret, less good when it's turning, right? Kind of becomes very weak very quickly. So you got to be careful to turn this turret. You can see how it instantly becomes very, very very weak in that regard. So always want to be facing your opponent, not turning. Kind of goes for like the same concepts. 1B, Griffon, etc. Kran, all of those tanks always want to be pointing the turret in the direction of the opponent. And because of the way that the armor works, you kind of want to only show them this part, or if even better, just peek fully frontal so they see the least amount of your penable armor whatsoever. So welcome to the TBT. We already talked about the armor model, that it's very usable in that regard, but now it's about the tank itself. In terms of equipment, you can see it here. This was one of the setups, although let's be honest, Vents doesn't do that much. Like it doesn't make this reload any less painful, to be honest. So I think I ended up playing mainly Stabs HP Turbo. Definitely used tier 3 Experimental Turbo, simply because, you know, it's just a very good tool to have, and you get like a little stabilization out of it as well. But yeah, this TBT, I have played it a bunch now, to be honest, and I can conclude I honestly don't think it's a bad tank at all, because it's very hard for a tank with the 490 alpha times 2 to be bad in that regard. But at the same time, playing this tank, kind of like the other ones already, if you watch the previous 2 videos, it's kind of boring, to be honest, is the conclusion of what I found the TBT, at least for me, because of the fact that it has such a long reload with, I mean, you know, if you compare it to the Skoda T56, which is a very, very good tank, of course, is extremely long and extremely punishing. Pushing across here with that reload is also very, very brave, but then again, you gotta remember this is a tier 8 battle on Ghost Town. And, you know, for that kind of engagement, 490 times 2 is amazing, right? Because, you know, you peek, you pew, you hit 2 shots, and you go roll back into safety. So you do 1000 damage, you do that 4 times, you got 4k. But after playing this tank a while, a bunch, it's just like, you're gonna have scenarios where you miss one of the 2, or you just miss both, and then you really feel how excruciatingly low this DPM really is on this tank. And to be honest, when a game is only 4 minutes long, you end up with the scenario that you do like 2-3 clips, and it's like, oh, that's it. You know, that was your game. And if you don't hit every shot on that clip, you just have a terrible game. So in this battle so far, it's working out, but it's like ideal scenario. You know, the game's already 2 minutes long and it's 2-1, so it's gonna probably go past the 4-minute marker. And I'm in a good position as well with teammates behind me also, which means that I can just peek, line up the shots, and consistently hit them as well. Yeah, I'm using full APCR because, you know, if you were in a clan, if you're using a personal credit booster, and you have a premium account, even with this setup during Christmas, you're definitely making money. Penetration-wise, you know, showing the values, so, you know, there's that. And I think it's, of course, you know, even more so if you're really trying to make credits with this and you're shooting AP, that bad DPM is going to be even more blatantly obvious and shining through. Like in this regard, you know, I'm using the most sweaty setup you can imagine, and even I have found the DPM very, very punishing and very anti-enjoyment of the gameplay, because like most of the time in the battle you just spend reloading. It's not very fun and dynamic because of it, to be honest. And I found that to be my biggest issue with it. But like for the rest of the tank, I'd say, you know, like the tank is solid still, you know. All things considered, I think this is a solid tank that can get some really good battles out. I just cannot find myself enjoying playing on it because of how much downtime there is throughout a battle. You want to be shooting a little bit more often, and I get that it has 490 alpha times 2, but my point stands. Yeah, it's an uninteresting tank in that regard, simply because I just don't want to be spending this much time reloading. And when I compare it to the tier 9 TNH, the tier 9 TNH together with the VZ55 got a reload nerf, and back in the day I argued that the VZ deserved to be nerfed because it was super, super good. We can look at it now and think about if we should, you know, change a few things back to what it was. But back then it definitely deserved it. What didn't deserve to be nerfed was the tier 9 TNH though. That tank was not overperforming, to be honest, in my opinion. But they ended up nerfing it anyways, even though, you know, I said we shouldn't do it. I don't think it's a good idea, etc, etc. And this tank, I mean, it's probably better than that simply because of the fact that it's 490 times 2. When you take that into consideration, you have, you know, just more damage per clip, less exposure time. It is what it is, yeah. When you use those factors, it just beats it because you just do more. Like even for somebody that only does 2 clips, you end up doing more damage. End of the day, alpha is king, and as long as alpha is king, extra alpha will be more worthwhile. But that doesn't mean you get to really enjoy the tank. I mean, in this battle, like, it is a good game, and you're not going to really be having massive games with this tank, simply because you don't have the DPM or the time to do so. You know, this was a 5-minute and 15-second game. I do 7.2, but I also hit literally everything outside of one shot, I think. So, and I had an ideal scenario. This tank, unlikely to be really super high up in the damage boards. Okay, so second game on the TBT, because, you know, there's not that much to say about this vehicle. Of course, it has a solid turret. The shape of the turret is very nice. It kind of follows the design there more of the tier 9 TNH, like we saw in the armor model as well, where cupola basically non-existent, kind of the same for the tier 9. The tier 10, not quite that small cupola on the VZ55, but you can see here the second setup, turbo HP tabs. I think that was my preferred setup eventually as well. Having the turbo is pretty nice, and a harder matchup here on Lakefield as well. Tier 9, tier 10, some TDs that could be sitting on the back on 1-2 line, some heavies that could play up front. So when you're playing this, you need to learn or know how to brawl. Kind of goes for every heavy, but especially those low DPM clippers are not really easy to play, because, you know, if you miss 1 or 2 shots, it's really impactful for your game. If you make a bad peek and lose heavy HP, it's pretty impactful for your game as well. And we're going to be going towards the valley on Lakefield because everything else on this garbage map is literally unplayable. You know, middle's unplayable, city's unplayable, so there's only valley left, yeah. Your team stops at A6, their team stops at K7. When you go into the city, you get completely owned by A6 from the south. So, like, what else can you do and then go valley? Like, this map is, like, high up on the list of needing a rework simply by how bad the entire city area is, to be honest. Potential fixes, I don't know, elevate the city so there's no shots from A6, A7, or add more buildings. So you're safe from the middle at least. There's too many angles right now, and too many bushes that just make it very uninteresting to play. The first clip here was a successful one, and this is why this is my favorite position on Lakeville, at least from the north. You know, just this rock is actually shaped extremely well for this peak, and there's always somebody trying to play on the outside there. But the way that the rock and the position is shaped, you're kind of peeking hull down on towards them. You're safe for the TDs, and it's a pretty good kind of fight, right? And with this tank, you know, it's peek, shoot, and then just like try not to fall asleep in the 30 seconds to follow. I can't help but mention it again, like it was such a, I don't know, boring experience. It's too long. There's not enough, maybe it's like the TikTok brain rot setting it, but there's not enough action, there's not enough pew to be exciting, you know? It's like, oh, I shot twice. Great. What do I do with my life for the next 30 seconds? Absolutely nothing. Just sit here and wait. But, you know, it's a quick 3k at least, right? Like I said, you can see the tank's not bad. It really isn't bad at all. Solid. Some would even say good, but sadly, it's just very uninteresting outside of that, in my opinion. And I feel like that's like kind of a general trend for all of these kind of tanks. It's like, well, at least the ones from the box, it's like, yeah, they're not bad, but they're not really fun either. Because, you know, Crocodilo is just kind of resident sleeper hold-on gameplay. BZT is like a 15-second reload simulator still, where you're missing the shot, and this is a 30-second reload simulator. I don't know. Maybe I'm just spoiled with you know, the tier 11s and constant action, like pew, right? And now struggling to adjust back to tanks without an ability. But, you know, if anything, at least it's a good showcase for the position in general and the things you can do from it as well. The shots you can get, the angles you can play, and, you know, the gun's performing nonetheless. So there's that. But that's not always going to happen, you know? Sometimes you're just going to be missing that shot twice, and then you have 900 DPM left for the next 30 seconds. So, you know, there's too many downsides to this, in my opinion. Too many. The biggest downside is just the reload. It's unmanageable. There's nothing you can do about it. I feel like this tank would almost be... I feel like it could almost be fixed by the simple fact that... like they did for the VZ, you know, for the VZ55, just give it a single shooter as well, and give people the option to at least I don't know, be more active in the gameplay and be more like engaged in it. Although I guess it's too late now since it's been released. But like this, solid tank. Will people play it too often? Do you need to be too worried about it? No, I don't think so. I think most people will never be able to make this tank work properly, simply because it's just too hard to do so. So I don't think you need to be really worried about playing against this. That was a terrible shot, to be honest. That's better, but we end up dying for that because, you know, this whole peak was kind of horrible, to be honest. Like from start till finish, it was kind of horrible. Not worth it. Overextension and death because of it. Could have been like a 7.5k, maybe 8k with a little bit of luck because the Leopard unspotted as well. But, you know, at least it showcased the position on Lakeville pretty well. So, looking at the Jagdpanzer E90 armor model and layout, you can see that this tank is honestly best when it's fully in hold down. That's when it does not show, right? That's when you do not show that nasty little cupola. That's really large, yeah? So, that is something to take into consideration. Hold down this tank looks like this. It is, you know, great. But you see, the problem is when you don't find that position, this superstructure, not all that fantastic, but mainly the fact that this cupola is really large, will be sticking out quite often. Of course, against, like, you know, it's like whenever you're peeking kind of hold on, you see how the superstructure actually becomes pretty decent. Yeah, when you play a little bit of gun depression, when you're not on flat ground, and then again the Jagdpanzer 100 on flat ground is not hard to pen for tier 9s and tier 10s either. You need like really low pen. Let's say this is a 310 millimeter heat pen. You know, you can already see that it starts to struggle really hard against the superstructure, right, which would be on the lower end of heat pen, but still have this massive cupola sticking out. The side, it's the side. There's not much to talk about. And the lower plate is, of course, the lower plate on top of having these flaps, but I don't think people will be shooting for that ever anyways. So that's something to watch out for. So the Jagdpanzer E90 might just be the most fun one, I think, out of all of the tanks in the boxes, to be honest. Like, if I'm thinking about it, like, I feel like the Jagdpanzer E90 is like, the reload is just short enough, the tank is just mobile enough, and everything about the tank is just good enough to make it be able to play and be engaged and actually contribute to the game. And, you know, all of that taken into consideration, yeah, I feel like this one might actually be the most fun one, and maybe even most played over long term, although that's debatable nonetheless. Of course, Jagdpanzer E90, 3 ammo types, AP. This heat with 334. So it doesn't really follow the Jagdpanzer 100 philosophy that much, because it would have like 345 minimum pen if they wanted to make it like really Jagdpanzer 100 style. So it's a bit on the lower end with this 334. With ammo tuning, of course, you can push that a little higher, but you know, that is not the greatest heat pen, but of course it has 750 alpha with 950 on the HE. 750 alpha at tier 9 is still a very large alpha, only found on very few amount of tanks, right? So it does slap hard, and of course you will find the tier 7 tanks to play against as well from time to time, and T-Bait. So, you know, like looking at the enemy team list, you know, 122, 2 shotable KPZ, 2 shotable T-43, 2 shotable Type 59, you know, the list goes on, right? There's plenty of tanks there that are gonna die in 2 shots to you, so, you know. But we are gonna be driving on the hill, of course. We are doing opposite day here, you know, the Conceiver is camping in the base and we're going on the hill. E50 is camping on the base and we're going on the hill. Yeah, I don't know. You tell me why there's a T95 sitting at K3 and you will be a genius, right? There's no real reason. Yeah, there's no real reason for the E50 to sit there. Or the T95, or the Super Pershing, or even... No, the rest is okay, I guess. Yeah. I mean, the SU is more aggressive than them. Spotting them running away, and, you know, it's small enough cast, so you're almost guaranteed to win the hill from this side. At least that's what it feels like these days. You know, you drive onto the hill, and you just kind of end up winning it straight. I don't know the exact reason why. I just know it's very annoying from the other side. You know, you just end up always losing the hill, no matter what you do. It's kind of demotivating to even attempt to take the windmill altogether. So, you know, there's that. Loading HE though, it's tempting against the Lynx, you know, because 950 alpha, the Lynx is 1000 HP. Not connecting it, taking 2 shots of damage for it, not really worth it. And of course, we saw it in the armor already. This cupola is really large, which means that the only way it works out is for you to play almost like fully hold on to even have an attempt at hiding it. So like either you're playing on a corner and exposing the left, so you're not exposing the cupola that much, or you're playing as far hold on as possible so they don't really have a cupola to shoot at. Like it's hard, you know, it will be hard, but it does slap extremely hard in return. And the best part about it is, of course, you got some armor, so the BZ is not penning you, which means you can get you can beat that ass against the BZ. Thought the Type 59 would continue running away. It's a bad driving by me, to be honest. In that regard, we take another shot there, but the BZ dies and we're winning the hill. And of course, you know, you got a pretty decent health pool as well, 2090 HP. is not little. You can trade against it, and if you're trading with 750 alpha, you're winning. But like I said, this tank, I think, out of all the ones that I played, was the most interesting one in terms of like general kind of gameplay as well, and just proactiveness, and not really giving that boring feeling either. You know, and it's a good Mali game. Like, I end up really having a lot of good Mali games from this side. From the other side, not quite. You know, like, I go windmill, I die. I go windmill, I die. I go windmill 3 more times and I die as well. I get angry, I say I'm never going windmill. I go windmill again and then die. And then at some point I do give up and I just play at A4 and just snipe away. I don't think the random event is enough to change the gameplay. I'm really not sure what would need to be done on this map, but you know, I think we can agree that something needs to change nonetheless. E50 gets spotted down. He's behind the church though, so not really a shot available on him. Unless he decides to turn, which he's not. My T69 dies. P50 just peeking out though, and you know, like, the gun feels really good on this Jagdpanzer. For like the alpha that it is. And you know, it feels good. For like, you always gotta imagine that high alpha guns are always kind of derpy, just because they're higher alpha and they need to have a drawback. But this one, feeling pretty good. So you know, quick 5k on Mali, and you know, this is the part of the Mali game that usually slows down a lot, even though they don't have a light. As long as they have somebody spotting, like somebody with a semi active brain, you end up in the scenario here where nothing's really happening for a while. You don't have the HP and you're relying on your teammates to figure out where the enemy team is, right? And obviously they're going to be on the A line somewhere. I think everybody is aware of that. That's what to be expected. I mean, the super person driving on mid, speed this up a little bit as well, because I don't think anything is happening here for a while. Just people moving up, and then the T-34-3 gets spotted out, but don't really have a shot on him anyways. Missing that one. If they kill the E50, you can actually drive down. If I had a little more HP, I think I could have driven down earlier as well, but like, when you're on 495, you don't really want to risk it anymore. You could if you wanted to, but you don't really want to. The Type 59 gets spotted out, but I'm looking at the T-34-3, so I didn't see it back then. Luckily enough, I was looking at the T-34-3, so I get a shot. You always see a little bit more when you're in a replay, of course, than when you're actually playing and trying to make the kills. And the good part here is that they have 4 unspotted tanks, which means that there's a lot of damage that could be dealt. And now we feel pretty confident to come down. You know, E50 is dead. T-34-3 is not peeking the bush anymore. All in all, an opportunity to come close. As you kill the super Pershing, could be still at the rock, but most likely a 3-4 to be honest. And now here comes the great part of this Malinovka. I think everybody's favorite experience. You don't have a light. They don't have a light. Nobody can really do anything. Your T95, you don't know if he has 1000 HP, 1500 HP or 0, but he's not pushing across the water either, so you could assume that he's low. We hit a shot against the ISU though. And this is, I mean, if you're playing as Mali, I think you feel like me. You're like just kind of waiting and hoping that somebody goes in to spot for you, because what else is there to do? The TNH is driving across the field, and yet the T95 is not moving, which means that the T95 is either AFK or very low HP, because look where the TNH is. But luckily enough, we have teammates that are interested in winning the game, and they're pushing in and trying to spot. I really appreciate that. This guy doesn't spot anything. It's not really the ideal pathing, but it does say that there's probably somebody spotting. And then, from what I remember, nothing happens again for a while. Average Mali game. Also, average World of Tanks complaints. You know, like, if the game is 2 minutes, it's too fast. If it's 10 minutes but not enough is happening, it's too slow. In this case, it's definitely too slow. I mean, the E50 decides to say, okay, I go, which means that, you know, he might be moving in and trying to do it. And the game has gotten really close, you know, it's 11-10. Neither team is really winning anymore. If the E50 gets to spot somebody, though, that would be pretty cool. We get some damage out of that as well. Obviously, there's always somebody camping on the A line. In my opinion, there's always somebody there. TC gets spotted out. We go for the SU simply because it's the easier shot, not because we could make the kill. It's just the easier shot. And this is the mistake here. This is the mistake. I don't entirely know, but I think we got spotted from there. It's weird though, because like we're not spotted yet. Now we shoot, and now we are spotted. And that is a mistake, because we are 495 HP, the CC is 490 alpha, and of course he wouldn't low roll. That is pretty sad, to be honest. And we're kind of losing out on a decent amount of damage, because I didn't hit the CC blind either. So this could have been like a 9k. So a little bit over eager there, trying to get some damage that doesn't end up working out. So, battle number 2 in the Jagdpanzer E90. We get Empire's Border against tier 11s. It's a weird kind of matchup though, because like you have these two tier 11s, and then there's some tier 10s, and then the tier 9s, of course. So in this regard, it's just a little weird, to be honest. But the tier 11s they have, I mean, Contriever, KR1, not too scared of the KR1, the Contriever a bit more annoying, but you can definitely still play. The downside, of course, of this tank is that you're a bit slow. But I think that, you know, on this map, it's not always that important to be fast. You have positions you can play. I also want to point out that at the beginning of this battle, I said, can I make it to the toilet and back before? You know, like I had to go pee. So this is why I'm driving into a wall. I was emptying my balls, okay? I was back, so that's how long it took, yeah. It wasn't very long, yeah. Speed running it back and probably leaving a few drops in the toilet and the desk, but you know, nonetheless, we made it. But we're going to be playing the position that is honestly not that popular and could become very much more popular the day people realize that it is very, very good. I actually play this one quite a lot, but I don't really see any of my teammates ever play this, or anybody else in general for that matter. Sadly, I think in this game it's not going to be delivering too much, but like in general, you can see where the VZ is playing. That's also the position that the enemy team would be over peaking. And because of that, when you have somebody on the corner like over there, spotting those guys peeking, you are blasting for free. It is free real estate. And of course, you know, the DZT corner there is also completely open. The trees give you perfect cover. And, you know, I've gotten hit once or twice from an FV from here for sure. So the day the FV players realize that this is the spot to be on this map, it's going to be very much pain and suffering in the south. Sadly for me in this battle, the south side of the map is completely underdeveloped by the enemy team. They're not really playing it. I mean, they have 4 tanks there, right? And then all 4 are going to die. That's not what I call developed. Yeah, they don't have anything at the corner in F1, F2. They don't have anything in E1. They're missing all of these things to like even stop this kind of onslaught. And they're missing mainly, I mean, their KR1, their VZ55. No, their VZ is there. Mainly the KR1, Type 68, you know, those kind of tanks in a hold on position to fire. Mainly the Type 68, I guess, because Type 68 would actually be able to blast. But we go back to the base, and it's kind of like regular Empire's Border gameplay, to be honest. But it's a good showcase of the tank just kind of holding in a position and doing what it can and slapping and clapping. Of course, you know, the armor, the superstructure, I think tier for tier is better than the Jagdpanzer E100, if I'm not mistaken. Like if you just compare the armor values, because the Jagdpanzer E100 gets spent a ton in the superstructure, like in the upper part of it. But then, of course, the Jagdpanzer E100 doesn't have 17 cupolas, right? So that's the downside of this. The KR1 is, you know, an easier opponent to play against because he will struggle to hit the cupola. Instead, he's just tapping us in the lower plate, though. And we're just, like, trying to keep them occupied for long enough for the teammates to come back in. And, I mean, the teammates are coming in. You gotta play kind of a bit aggro against the KR1, simply because of the fact that Otherwise we get flanked by the 430U. We don't want that to happen. And we've honestly donated this opportunity to the KR1. But it's another good example of trading it out. The 430U tries to kill us, doesn't succeed at it, to be honest. Not the greatest play by him whatsoever. But yeah, just to round it off, the Jagdpanzer E90, you know, this is what it does well. Just trading 1 for 1, or given 750 alpha, mobility pretty fine. Pretty decent tank all around, to be honest, but nothing too amazing either, or too stand out. And you know, that alpha is what makes this a pretty comfortable tank to play, because you know, the higher the alpha, the more comfy it kind of is, depending on how bad the gun is, of course. And this gun is completely fine, so you know, you get a tank that's honestly pretty good, right? Pretty good. Can't really complain about it too much. But again, not the easiest to play, simply because of the fact that, you know, it has that massive cupola. Like, this one really is massive. Always aiming for the fuel tanks against the mouse. That's not cheating, that's just aiming. Sadly, he doesn't have a good fire crew either, I think. Got a nice 5k, 1k damage, 1.5k damage out of the mouse. Of course, higher alpha usually means, or like higher caliber gun means higher module damage. Higher module damage equals higher chance to set him on fire, so it all plays in your favor in that regard. And yeah, I mean, wasn't the most exciting game, but just kind of showcasing what the tank is capable of, right? And it's capable of enough, to be honest. But the general trend between all of these loot boxes tanks is none of them is really the crème de la crème. None of them are really the highlight, the pinnacle of all the tanks. Get one more shot against the Trifutura, a quick 5.8. Not a bad game whatsoever. Basically the same. Like, this is why this tank is probably considered better than the Aslains C. You can see here, against its own AP, playing on turret, there's a lot of these like really random little spots, right? It's honestly, it's random. Yeah, it's very weird. But the turret will work against its own AP, and it will also work against its own APCR. These odds are not fantastic. Like, there's spots like, yeah, 70, 450, but then there's also like, this is all auto ricochet. This is unpennable. And when it's peaking, like you'll see later on in the video, when it's peaking against you, you're not going to be able to shoot that low a lot of the time. You're going to be aiming more towards the center of the turret more often than not, where the odds are not fantastic, right? Of course, when you start playing against tier 10s, it looks a little bit different. You're still going to have random bounces on the turret, but like in general, you're not going to be bouncing too much tier 10s. When you're looking at like 290 AP, you still have the auto bounce angles, which is pretty cool to have, but of course no whole armor whatsoever. But this turret will work for you against a lot of tier 8s, a decent amount of tier 9s, tier 10s. You know, you shouldn't be really trading hold on with tier 10s to begin with, right? But you know, this tank is all about its turret that has a non-existent hull altogether. And of course, the thing is, it can side scrape a little bit as well. Would not recommend though, because you need to bait them to actually shoot your side. And the moment you get somebody that's not dumb, you know, they will not be shooting that. But you can try to bait with that as well. Taking that into your gameplay advice. Wait. Welcome to the Stridsyxa, or whatever you want to call it. Basically, what this is in my opinion, a better Aslains C. I don't know how else to like look at it, you know, like it just feels like it's a better Aslains C because they got a better turret, so you have more opportunities to actually play. Because of that, like you have more opportunities, you know, better turret, more opportunities. It is a funny looking tank though, right? Because, you know, it kind of gives me the I swear there's some meme with some guy leaning back in that specific way as well. Maybe it's the armchair guy at the computer, you know, like the one, I think it's from South Park or whatever. It's kind of giving me that vibe, you know. But yeah, we got Suzuki. It's a tier 7 battle. When you analyze the enemy team's lineup, you see some pretty, like, not so great heavies. You know, IS-2S, KV-3, TNH. Nothing you really should be too worried about. And you see some nice farm as well. You know, like Tiger 1 is a pretty nice farm. So if we could fight him, that would be pretty cool. And because it's tier 7, and because we have a turret actually pushing up in the beginning and getting ready to surprise an enemy. Walls are falling, so you know he's coming, right? So, nonetheless, we got a good shot against the Tiger 1. He's tracked already as well. We're going for the retrack, and the T28, I think, or no, actually the IS3 hits him as well, puts him on track once more. And you can see like the DPM here in combination of the alpha of this tank, it allows you to, with the 350, allows you to get a pretty decent farm out. Sadly, tier 7 IDs are the only thing worse on this planet than tier 10 IDs. Yeah. Like, tier 10 IDs are bad and annoying. Tier 7 IDs are more annoying. I don't know if it gets more annoying than tier 7 IDs outside of maybe like FE3 or 4 at tier 6, I guess. That would be pretty much up there as well. But, you know, another shot from the GW Panther, minus what, 600 HP in 25 seconds. It's incredible. I can guarantee you that I was molding during this battle from getting shot at by the RD. Because, you know, it wasn't enough that the GW Panther takes away 20% of our HP every shot. The M12 is also capable of doing that. So we take another shot there from the M12. And even though we actually played really well and really didn't make any mistakes to point out, I guess we were too open for the RD and allowed the RD to give us, you know, 50% of our HP. So, on top of a quicker stun, I am, you know, some days glad that I am not a low tier player in that regard, because if I was playing exclusively like tier 6 to 8, I would be pissed every day. Like, a combination of reload and damage, I think they nerfed their 790s at some point, is still too high. What is also high is my damage right now in this battle. Even higher after that shot against the SG-130. So, you know, taking that into consideration, this blind I think hit, or could have hit, or didn't hit at all. I'm not sure anymore. So, you know, we have a position now where we're just waiting for spots, trying to blind a few shots as well, because we can see where they're shooting us from, and maybe we can shoot them back. The GW Panther gets spotted out, give him a shot, hit it right before the Canon Jagdpanzer, so it's 355 to the bang. And, you know, like a 4K battle, let's say 4K at this point, is already like a pretty good result at tier 8, to be honest. I don't let anybody tell you differently. The IS2 driving out in the open. Luckily for us, he's driving behind the 3. We get a shot for that as well. Might even find the finish. Instead, no, we do finish him. We could have maybe shot the RD as well if we want to maximum utilization. But, you know, we killed the IS2. We killed the M12 as well, so that's 350 to the blind department. So 4.4 in this battle. And this is honestly like a very, very solid result. ISU shot as well, 4.7 or 4.8. And honestly, like, this little thing was kind of fun to play. I didn't think it was bad at all either. I don't think there's any stinkers this time around in these boxes at all that are like, yeah, brother, ew. To be honest. I mean, that wasn't really the gun's fault for missing. It was just me being in a bad position. Spot out the SU. And thanks to this, like, leaves and foliage, we're farming pretty effectively. And, well, I'm not sure. I think, like, 6 to 7k is what we consider, like, a great game for tier 8. So, we're not that far off. We're, like, at 5.1 right now. 5.4 after that shot. Been still in the open, and this was actually like, this all comes off the back of like a really good initial push, and it's a fast game, but I think we are also the reason why it is a fast game. We made a good initial push, we killed one of their heavies, teammates followed up, seeing that I'm pushing up, they push up, we push up, we kill them close, and then, you know, luckily for us, the teammates keep pushing and spotting themselves into that, and yeah, we got a good game out of it as well. 5.5, 5.8 after this one. So, you know, filling, getting some good damage out. One more shot against the 122. 6.4 almost. We're a little bit afraid of the Barask. Of course, we don't want to run into him. We know he's somewhere on the 0 line, and it's honestly like a very, very good game for this tank. Actually, it's a great game for this tank. After doing 11k on the turtle, you know, your like expectations on tier 8 are kind of messed up as well. But yeah, we try to stay realistic. Getting a shot on the Barask, Would already be a very, very nice thing. We do get spotted out. And we get a shot against the Borask as well. So that's a 6.5. After that, he dies to the Caro. And somehow the LTB hasn't died against the Super Hellcat. So maybe we'll get one more shot against him as well. He's 363 HP. 353 actually. But, you know, as far as like tier 8 premiums go in terms of medium department, this didn't feel that bad at all. I'd probably put it above the Lanson. After playing it, I played all of these honestly like kind of a decent amount to be able to judge that. If I have to pick between this or a Lanson, I would pick this. Looking for one more shot here. And it's going to hit as well. I know the Tracer looks like it wasn't going to hit him, but, you know, it did. And I can tell you it was 2 blinds, so it was 7k out of this battle. With a Top Gun as well. Pretty solid. So, a different matchup now to see how the tank performs against a bit higher tiers. It's going to be a Ghost Town battle against tier 9s with the contender BZ114. And because we are a very brave human being and we do not fear basically anybody, yeah, we are going to be pushing up very early. Is this a great play? Probably not. Is it a good attempt? Probably yes. We see the T-34 drive behind us. And funnily enough, I recognize the name of that T-34. He is, I think, currently banned for pushing us out of the window in Berlin. I swear to God, that name is like reminiscent of the guy that was in my asshole. I'm certain of it almost. Would need to clarify that later on. But yeah, we're not playing here, and this is a true test for the stir, right? Like, how much do we bounce? How much do we hold up? Can we actually play this? It's a bit of limit testing. The BZ114 reminds us that the limit may have been reached. You know, he quickly taps us, reversing for 459. We're still trying, being annoying, peeking forwards, backwards, trying to give them a difficult shot. It does seem like it's not that easy for them to penetrate my turret, otherwise they would just be shooting the whole time, right? If they really were so confident and had like a good outline on it, they would just be clicking it. The Foch is clicking himself to the next battle. Not penning that. Luckily enough for us, the Foch left enough space for us to peek. And against the contender here, it's not easy to find this shot. It's not easy to play this position either with that many people looking at you, because you can't really stand still, because the moment you do, if you stand still at any given point, they will blast you. That is a stock BZ114, I think. I don't know about stock gun. I think it might be that one as well, but that does help a little bit, of course. Lining up the contender here, and we're hitting that, you know, right? We're hitting that. We're making those shots count, and this is not the type of gameplay you would normally expect, I guess, from a tier 8 premium, playing close range against the enemy and trying to brawl it out against tier 9 heavies, but it is working. So that means one of two things: the tank is actually fairly decent, or the entire enemy team is paid. Whichever one you want to say is more likely, right? But, you know, we've killed one. We're looking to kill a second in terms of the contender. And the only sad thing about this battle is we're doing really well. That was a bad shot because the gun blocks. Is that we are winning really hard and really quickly as well. Like, their 1-2 line has fumbled the bag. We have made sure that they fumbled the heavy part in the middle, so that's entirely our fault, right? But T95's on reload. For this to be like a super great game, you would need a game in which, of course, you know, like power-wise, not gonna bounce that. You would need a game in which they hold 1-2 line, and kind of don't progress much on 9-0 line. I think we bounce that because we go through his gun as well. I'm not sure though. We see here, you know, bouncing a T95 shell, even with AP, low-key crazy, you know? It shows that this turret does work up until some extent, right? Which is always a very good thing to have. Sadly, the shooting wasn't the best here, and we actually lose out a little bit of damage, to be honest. The game, however, is coming to an end, and yes, guys, if you were wondering if there's a double XM on the 0 line, there is indeed a double XM on the 0 line. Yes, my AT-15 is flipped over as well. And yes, there's zero reason why the XMs should be on 0 line, but, you know. This kind of gun performance probably reminds you a little bit of the Lansen as well, to be honest, where the gun's a little bit like trolly from time to time. And seeing as we're 622 HP, this also means that we are one shot to the XM, which means that we can't really make aggressive peaks, yeah? We gotta be really careful, which is also causing us damage. If we took one less shot at any given point and has slightly more HP, we could have just taken the shot here from the XM and be like, whatever, and actually trade it out. And I think that's the difference here between a really, really good game and a great game, is the fact that I didn't have enough HP left at the end. I simply didn't have enough HP to tank an XM shot. If I did, I would have tanked it. I would have given him 3 shots for it. We would have had an additional 600 damage as well, which would have led us to a 6.5k, you know. So there's that. But we know the G-Sor is somewhere here, right? We know that he has to be somewhere in this area. At least we would think so. And we do spot him on our right. We have HE loaded. We hit the HE. A quick 5.7. Honestly, could have been like almost 7k with slightly better shooting, slightly better HP. But showing that the tank is honestly not that bad. As always, gamers, I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. I'll see you guys on the very next one. Peace.